Hey Sim followers, it's MK. Hey, I'm here with a quick little tutorial today and a hint for that last pass of a pantograph. Now, if you do pantos the MK way, you will likely end up with some sort of a partial row, a cropped row, as your last pass. So that's where I'm at right now, and I know that the camera angle is a little difficult for you to see my tablet. So when I'm done doing the steps here at the quilt, I'm going to take you inside a simulation and show you how I do this. I also have a YouTube video that I loosely referred to this technique in, and I'll post that as well. Okay, so what I have on the screen is a full pass. It's stitched out from left to right, and now the machine is ready to go and stitch the last partial pass. Now what I would normally do if I'm stitching a pass and it's completed itself over here on the right hand side, I would go ahead and clip my threads and let the machine travel back to the left hand side. Well, I could do that right now, no problem. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to leave my thread engaged. I'm going to go ahead and hit stop on my tablet. I'm going to go into modify and swap my start and end point. Now again, I know you can't see that on the screen. Just wait for the simulation step. Now what has happened is my start point is on the very last pass, but it's on the right hand side. So what does that mean? The machine's going to travel down to that start point and it's going to start stitching in the other direction. Now, if you have rented my Best Practices for Pantos class, you know that there's a different way that I do it in my studio where I actually connect the rows from pass to pass so that I don't have all of my stop points along the right hand side. So of course, if you want that full video on all the instruction on how I handle pantographs, just head on over to mkquilts.com to the video training store and you can pick up that full-length video on all things pantographs. But this is just one really little simple way if you would like to stitch in both directions that you can accomplish that at the bottom of the quilt. And along with that, I just want to give a little bit of a plug for my ballpoint needles. You guys, I use exclusively here at MK Quilts Gross Beckert ballpoint needles. Those are an FG needle. I use them in size 16 and 18. I no longer use sharps ever. And I find with these ballpoint needles that my machine has no trouble stitching from right to left. No tension issues, no thread shredding, no thread breaks, nothing. I'm using Omni. I've got an 18 ballpoint needle in McFusion, and I'm gonna now let it travel down to that start point and head in the other side, and then I'll meet you inside a simulation. Let's do it. All right, and there it goes from right to left. Let me meet you inside a simulation and I'll show you up close and personal just exactly how I did that. All right, so what you're looking at on the screen is just the two passes of my pantograph that I was using to stitch out my quilt. And for those of you who have taken my classes, you know that when I set up pantographs that are complete edge-to-edge pantographs, I set them up to the number of rows that will fit in my throat depth plus one extra row for repositioning. So that's just a little tip and a hint into how I teach pantographs. So let me just go ahead and select that so that you can see that this is a cropped pass and another exact duplicate cropped pass. And I was just stitching this row over and over again through the quilt. All right, let me just turn on my area box. And the area is basically just the area at the bottom of my quilt, that last bit of quilt that was exposed in my throat depth. So basically at the quilt, I moved my machine over here, did a two-corner area, moved my machine down towards my rail, actually down towards the end of the quilt, and off to the side, and that's right there is where I put my last two-corner area. Okay, so the area was defined at that point. My pattern was repositioned. Basically, you guys, how I reposition is I bring my machine into position over a marker that I had put in the batting, and then I did modify reposition on start point. Okay, so my pattern was in position, my area box was created, and then all I did was do a modify crop, close my edges, and crop outside. And then I was left with this. Okay, so we want a baseline before we stitch always. And then we just let the machine stitch out. So we'll just let it get started here for a second. Okay, and it was stitching along, stitch, stitch, stitch. We don't have to watch the whole thing stitch out. Why don't I just move along here to someplace closer to the edge of the quilt, or rather towards the edge of that first pass, and we'll select a new start point over there, and we'll just let it stitch out. Okay, so this is the point that I was at when I started recording at the quilt. So all I did was hit the stop, just to stop my machine, stop the whole process. I went up under modify, hit swap. Now I want you to watch what happens with the start circle and the stop circle when I hit swap. So now my start circle is over here and it's shifted down here to the last pass. Well, that's the pass that I want to stitch. So from there, I just did a pro stitcher. Now remember, my machine is up here and it's going to travel down here. I did not even break my threads up here. Okay, so I did not clip them or break them or anything. I just did a pro stitcher quilt, and I actually at the machine I forgot to turn off my pull-up auto. So we can take up the pull-up auto, but we'll go ahead and leave the pull-up on. We wouldn't even actually have to leave the pull-up on, but let's just go ahead and leave it on. And then our machine's going to travel down there. It's going to do a needle down, needle up for the pull-up, and then just hit resume. And now it's stitching from right to left. Let me just turn the area box off so that you can see it's a cropped pass now, and it's stitching from right to left. So again, you guys, normally what I was doing throughout this quilt as I was stitching is every time it got to the end of the full pass, I would let the machine travel across, and this would have been a start point, not a stop point. I would let the machine travel across, do needle down, needle up, and then I would put a marker in my quilt, advance the quilt, and then every time I would reposition on that marker. So that's what I did for the entirety of the quilt until I got to the bottom. On the very last pass and a bit, all I had to do was let that first pass stitch out and then do those steps that I just showed you right now. And just again as a review, that was just hit the stop button, go up under modify, swap those start and end points. The machine was just hanging out up there, wasn't it? The thread was engaged, everything was fine. Once I swapped the point, I just ran the pattern again, and the machine came down and started stitching just like it is, and it ended up right over there. Okay, very, very easy, quick thing you guys can do, and it'll just save you a little bit of time. But if you get into the habit of stitching this in this manner over the course of many, many, many pantographs that you're stitching out, and the many, many times that you're cutting your threads and moving the machine over, if you do this technique over time, it will save you a load of time. Okay, hope that was helpful, you guys. Until next time, it's MK. Happy quilting. Bye-bye.